So basically what we are looking at is what was prior to the British Mandate of Palestine. This is the Ottoman Empire. They occupied our region for 400 years. This is the last Islamic empire. The Ottoman Empire was the final Islamic Khilafah, or maybe ISIS. They tried later on, but they did not succeed. So this is 1913, approximately 6 years before the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, which was the outcome of the World War I. And can we see, please, map number 2? There we go. So now this is the new color. What you see the British influence and control. Most of the land that I'm interested to discuss tonight is between France and Great Britain. This is when the British Mandate of Palestine was born. It started developing in 1919, but then it was manifested in 1922. This was the beginning of what we know today as Palestine. Of course, why the British choose the name of Palestine? Because there were some ancient group that actually we don't have any evidence of their existence except from in the Jewish Bible, and could be some Roman text that called the Philistines. But they vanished. To connect them to the people today and say, they have the same DNA, they have the same Bible, they have the same currency, they have the same scripture, lineage, that's not true. They're totally disconnected. And so they call the region from the river, the Jordanian River, to the Mediterranean Sea, Palestine. In that region, we had Jews, Arabs, Druze, Christians, Muslims, invaders, all type of people. And all these people were given a Palestinian passport issued by the British. So the Jews who lived in that era, the colonial entity, from 1922 to 1948, the Jewish people were called Palestinians. Everybody was called Palestinian. But who invented the name Palestinian and who issued the passports and the currency? It was the colonial entity of Palestine. When they say it's the British Mandate of Palestine, so Palestine is called after the mandate, not vice versa. So basically, this is where it started. And as you see, prior to 1922, there was no country called Palestine. There was the Ottoman occupation, approximately 400 years, or actually exactly 400 years of occupation. These are the ones who kept us in the darkness, because they put a siege on our region. They do not allow us to read. They did not allow us to print. Europe got out of the dark ages. They start printing. They rebelled against the absolute control of the church. But the Ottoman Empire, they kept us in the darkness. They did not allow any intellectual property coming from outside world. We were totally disconnected. And of course, our ancestors. And we did not have, of course, internet at that time to have access to the rest of the world. So this is why Actually, let's say one of the main reasons, as a person who studied history, why we are few hundred years behind Europe and few hundred years behind the rest of the world, because of the Turks who enslaved us. The Jewish people could not handle it. They could not handle slavery. This is why they migrated. It was an ethnic cleansing process by the Islamic Khilafah. And it was not coincidence why the Jewish people start returning to the land of Israel immediately after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. Because we are talking about 400 years of ethnic cleansing. And people accuse the Jewish people, the indigenous people who have roots, who maintained presence, who were forced out of their land, spread throughout Europe. Then they had to face the Holocaust. And when they migrated back to their homeland, to where they belong, after many, many years of ethnic cleansing, they have been accused as colonizers. Does not make sense, because people have the right, especially prior to Sykes-Picot. This is Sykes-Picot, by the way, when the land was divided, as you see, all the colors, the colonial entities of the Middle East. So there was no political borders. People were able to just ride the donkey from Mecca to Jerusalem. And nobody stopped them. So when people migrated from Europe because of war, when do people migrate throughout the centuries? People migrate when there is drought, when there is natural disaster, when there is flooding, when there is earthquake, when there is war. It's our right. Like, God forbids, if this world goes out of control, the political borders will not exist anymore. So in that situation, there was no political borders. This was just done in 1917, Sykes-Picot. So now to start believing that there is a border and there is a country with borders that existed before the existence of State of Israel in 1948, and it was called Palestine, and it has been occupied, is total insanity. It's against science, it's against facts, it's against the truth, it's against the Bible, it's against everything. I'm not saying that the Arabs did not exist. This is, again, my ethnicity, and I will never cancel their right to exist. In fact, Israel acknowledged the Arab presence. This is why there were just few 100,000 back in the day when Israel was established, and today we have more than 2 million Arabs who live in Israel. Some of them are actually judges in the Supreme Court. Find me one Jewish judge in Arab country. Then they unfortunately, when I said about the false narrative, and people have been accusing Israel of ethnically cleansing the Arabs, such a big lie that is not going to help the situation. It will only get the situation worse and worse, and it's attracting all negative energy around the globe. And they have been weaponizing all the hateful people against the Jewish minority. I'm not here to advocate on behalf of the Jewish people, but I know the danger. If we legitimize such violence and hateful ideology against a religious minority or a human race, then what is going to be next? So the false narrative, this is where we need to just provide the facts. Was Palestine ever a country? And if it wasn't a country, a sovereign state with distinguished language, religion, or an ethnic majority, then it never existed. And if it never existed, this means that it has never been occupied. Then, oh my God, the United Nations is in trouble. Because what's so-called international law, it's considered the West Bank and Gaza occupied territories. But occupied from who? When they decided to invade Israel in 1967 with one goal, to annihilate the Jewish people, only because they are Jewish, by the way. And I take responsibility for my statement. If you want to cancel me, you can cancel me. This is the truth. They lost the war. Iraq, Jordan, Syria, Egypt, and so many volunteers from around the globe, they came and they outnumbered Israel multiple times with one intention. But somehow a miracle happened and they lost the war. This is when Israel had to take the West Bank, this red spot. I think most of us right now know what the West Bank and the Golan Heights, the Sinai Peninsula, and the Gaza Strip, where all the chaos happening right now. That was the outcome of the Arab invasion of 1967. But why Israel stayed there? Because when Israel was established, it's in the coast area, the coastal, by the Mediterranean Sea. On the top sits the West Bank, on the top of the mountains. Then there is the Jordanian Valley. It's actually the lowest point on earth, which functions as a defense line. In order for any enemy to try to go into the valley and climb up the mountain, Israel had the possibility to stop them in the valley. If they had the opportunity to reach the top of the mountain, then they would invade the coast in no time, because the coastal belt, you can cross it on a motorbike in less than 15 minutes. So this is why for Israel, it's a matter of security, number one. It's not a matter of stealing land. Actually, in fact, they own the land. Because when the Arabs decided a war against Israel and they lost the land, the winner decides the terms of post-war, especially if it did not belong to a sovereign country, to any sovereign country prior to the war. So you came and you tried to take over my territory. Then I kicked you out of a territory that actually does not belong to you. I'm just pushing you back for my security. So you don't have the capacity to invade me overnight and commit a Holocaust against my people. So why the Arabs felt entitled for that land? There is a reason, but I don't want to discuss it tonight because it might take us to a dangerous place. Then after that, I may be labeled Islamophobic. Then I would be canceled again. Maybe I would be sentenced to death again and again and again. So anyway, the Arabs, we had our opportunity to establish an Arab state before even the Palestinian identity was fabricated. We had our opportunity in 1948. We had equal opportunity. But instead of declaring our independence, we declared war against the Jewish people who just declared their independence. And the Jewish people did not have a problem. So, okay, here is a separation. It's part the land You take this part. It's a very, very small land. Again, if you look at the Israeli map from the river to the sea, you can cross it in less than 1 hour. This is how small it is. And everybody is trying to force two-state solution after 7 major wars in the region. And they are trying to reverse the wheel of time somehow and cancel all the events that happened in the past 70 years of conflict and hatred and bloodshed. Well, how can anybody reverse all that? There is a new reality on the ground. It was possible back in 1948. Why didn't you take it? But they were blinded with hatred. And again, it was a matter between the Jews and the Arabs. It was not a matter between the Jews and the Palestinians. The Palestinians were not born yet. And of course, the Jewish people refused to identify themselves with Palestine because Palestine to them was the colonial entity, and they fought against the Brits and they earned their independence. If you study the Jewish history and their struggle to earn their independence, it was not given to them as a gift, as many people actually say. So things change over time. But the Yasser Arafat declared the Palestinian independence, I think it was in 1988. This was 40 years after he had his first opportunity, or after the Arabs had their first opportunity to declare their independence. In 40 years, many, many things changed. And Israel would never trust the Arab countries ever again after their campaign in 1967, especially their war in 1973, which they got very, very close actually to annihilate the Jewish state. And this is why the Jewish people did not want to identify with Palestine, even though the Israeli Prime Minister at that time, Golda Meir, held a Palestinian passport. She was a Palestinian. But the Jewish people have an authentic identity, an identity that is older than 5,000 years, older than history. They choose to be their own true identity after the termination of the colonial entity in 1947, 1948. And why we think that we have the right to tell them, no, you don't have that right. No, Israel is known with overwhelming evidence to their existence, artifacts, archaeology, temple, currency. 5,000 years ago, or 3,000, thousands of years ago, let's say, it was the shekel. And today, it's still the shekel. It was the Bible, it's still the Bible. The temple. And the Muslims built their mosque on the top of the Jewish temple. And they have been preventing the Jewish people to worship freely in their most holiest site. And the state of Israel, in the heart of its capital, say it's okay. Let's get along, preventing their Jewish citizen from entering actually Temple Mount to just avoid clashes with the Arabs or any wars. So tell me, who's taking responsibility and who's being actually irresponsible, waging religious wars and hatred against religious minority? Can we please see just the map number 3? So this is Israel today, and as you see, this is Ramallah up there. This is my hometown where I was born. I had never been to Gaza except like until this war. I went to Khan Yunis for just a couple of days to see Hamas tunnels. I wanted to go into them. I wanted to see them firsthand because I thought maybe it could be just like a lie. I have to go inside. I went in this tunnel, was 2-kilometer tunnel beneath Khan Yunis, where Hamas spent billions of dollars on building a metro. They could have built above the ground, but they choose to build below the ground, embedded in the most populated area in the Middle East, could be on the face of earth, Gaza Strip, per capita. So anyway, now they call it the West Bank, but remember my word, to Israel, this is a defense line. It's a defense line because in the surrounding areas, we have the Houthis in the south, then we have in Iraq a new Hezbollah, we have the Shi'is, we have the Islamic revolution of Ayatollah. They call it Iran wrongly. The people of Iran don't belong to that culture. It's just like another fanatic group who hijacked the Iranian people for the last 46 years. So basically, hundreds of millions of people. Israel is very, very small. We saw what happened on October 7th. They can invade in masses, then it would be chaos if Israel does not stop them in this natural defense line, the Jordanian Valley. The only way, or the other way, to nuke the people. And we don't want to reach that point, to start like throwing mass destruction weapon because Israel is totally outnumbered. So with that said, we need to respect the reality on the ground. We're not looking only at map. We need to understand geography. We need to understand history. And I separate myself. I don't want to consider myself educated. But you are educated people. And all this chaos is based on lies. So we must bring the facts and the truth to the public. Otherwise, this Palestine is a very, very dangerous trigger. And you see how it developed, how fast it developed. And today, so many people have been legitimizing violence by the name of occupation, colonialism. Even today here on campus, we have calling to divest from Israel, boycott Israel, sanction Israel, arm embargo. Why? How else can we deal with Hamas? And this is an organization, by the way, my father helped establish. How else can we deal with this? And I tell you something, negotiations between me and my father reached a dead end. And that's me and my father. That's it. There is nothing to talk about. I cannot convince him, and he cannot convince me. And one of us is right, and the other is wrong. One of us is to the right side of history, and the other one is on the wrong side of history. And at this moment, I am not claiming that I am on the right side of history, but time will prove. What I know for sure, and where I stand in certainty, that violence is a dead end. And unfortunately, when they decided to go and did what they did on October 7th, I saw the footage that some of the public saw, and also I saw footage that was not released to the public, especially in relation to rape. How can you rationalize with people like this? That's it, it's dead end. It's over. And if Israel lose the war in Gaza, and this is what all the calls, by the way, for the ceasefire now, they want ceasefire now. Basically, they're telling Israel, drop your guns and accept the genocide that took place on October 7th. Accept the ethnic cleansing of 20 Jewish communities that they were killed based on their race, ethnic, and religious background. This is what defines a genocide. What's happening in Gaza is not ethnic cleansing, is not a genocide. But they have been enjoying the accusation of Israel, delegitimizing Israel, and creating a global chaos and spreading the false narrative of something called Palestine that never existed. This is why I am here today. And I take responsibility and I challenge the historians, I challenge the journalists, I challenge the philosophers, I challenge whoever, because I belong to that part of earth. This is my birthplace. This is where I came from. And earth has been crying. Enough. Enough is enough. Enough indoctrination, enough child abuse. They were not born Palestinians. They were born free, and they have the freedom to decide their future, and enough of Yasser Arafat's and all these con artists who want to continue sacrificing children for their political and financial gain. Enough of this game. Enough. Call it Palestine, call it Wakanda, whatever you want to call it.